That was my bad on the last video. We kind of went a little bit too hardcore in the capital ships and stuff in the overall game plan. So on this one, I'm gonna try and think out a process to go from starter ship to a decent sized fleet. I'm gonna try and think this out a little bit simpler because we need a process here. So you go from a starter ship. I think you save up for a Connie. Connie's very versatile and essentially, in my mind, is equivalent to a Black Hawk helicopter, sort of. You have missiles, you have guns, you can carry a vehicle, you have a fighter jet, but there's also different kinds of Connies, so you can have a science Connie or whatever else that you need. So essentially, you can use whatever Connies that you want because we're not necessarily caring about the function of the Connie itself. We're caring about their like carry capacity and missions. I think you would try to get 6 players potentially. So I think we're going to work off of a 6 player group. So you go from, let's say you get 6 players, you all have 6 starting ships. I think you work for a Connie. Then you can have 6 people on a Connie. Or 4 people on a Connie, or 5 on a Connie, and 1 in a starter ship still, or whatever else that you want. I would probably just save up for 4 Connies. But ideally everyone's probably going to want their own Connie, so you could get 6. And if NPC crews become a part in the game, then that means that you could have 6 Connies crewed with NPCs if you wanted to. And since their pilot-controlled main guns are the biggest deal, the turret gunners and all of that aren't really going to be that big of an issue. And then the next thing you'd probably try to get is a Liberator, because it can extend the duration or the distance that your Connies can go, and also act as a supply station to like hold your supplies away from your Connies. So if you lose a Connie in a fight, you only really have to worry about the Liberator. And essentially what I would do probably is have 2 people leave their Connies and operate the Liberator. Or basically what you would do is you would have 6 Connies, you would buy the Liberator, you would put 2 Connies on top of the Liberator, and then you'd have 4 Connies and 1 Liberator. Um, to do missions and stuff with. Then you could probably save up and get 2 more Liberators. Take your people from those ships. You put 2 Connies on top of each Liberator. Now you have 3 Liberators and 6 Connies. Then you could put ground vehicles in the bottom of the Liberators or aircraft. And you'd have 2-man crews in each Liberator. And then the next phase would probably be to get a Carrack. So you'd have a Carrack, which you could fully crew with 6 people, or that you could use NPCs with. But you could use a Carrack and 1 Liberator at that point. So, okay, so what you'd do is you'd get 6 Connies, then work towards 3 Liberators, and then you would work towards 1 Carrack. Then you would use one Carrack and one Liberator to bring extra vehicles and stuff with you as you explore. And then you would get probably some type of bigger ship for defense. You would, well, you'd probably want an Eclipse. So you probably want at least one Eclipse on the Liberator to deal with bigger threats, and then you would want some type of escort ship. Potentially. But you're getting out of six players at that point. I think with 6 people, you go Carrack, Liberator. You could put your 2 Connies on there, or you can get a couple of Redeemers. You want an Eclipse. And that would be your basic package. So essentially what would happen is um, if you go Connie or Redeemer, I don't think it necessarily matters. Redeemer is going to probably be better in a fight, potentially. But what that does is it lets you basically crew your Carrack and leave your Liberator behind. Go and investigate whatever you're going to investigate. And then the Liberator would carry extra vehicles, extra ground vehicles, extra scout vehicles, PCs, Argo cargos, and then you would have 2 Carracks or 2 Redeemers, and you'd have your Eclipse. You could potentially put arrows. So probably what I would do is you'd have 2 Connies or 2 Redeemers, then you'd have an Eclipse, and you'd have um 6 arrows potentially, and then some ground vehicles. And then essentially you would have pretty much anything that you would need. If the character gets in trouble, you could go back, grab Connies or grab the fighter jets, whatever you need, and then come back. And then the next stage would probably be a Crucible. The thing is that you can move these ships with 6 players, but it'd be hard to defend them. Because technically, if you have a Crucible, a Starfarer, a Liberator, and a Carrack with 6 players, you can fully crew the Carrack with 6 players. You could offload 2 to the Liberator, move the Liberator with the Carrack, and then you could use the PC ships to ferry your players to the other ships to move the ships with you. And then land them on the ground. Interesting to think about. All right, I'll be back here in a little bit. I got to think about this a little bit, but I think that's pretty much the game plan. Because after that, I mean, all you have left is like your Perseuses and stuff. But with a 6-man group, all you can really hope for is you either go into space and you kind of slowly travel through space, but if you get caught in a fight, you're kind of, boned. unless you have NPC crew. But ground combat you could probably handle potentially.